Interest rates are the best that they have been probably in the last century. Would you agree?
I would agree with that.
So, are you thinking about refinancing? Are you thinking about buying a house? We're going to talk about what, Steve?
Yep, we're going to cover two main points. The first one is your mindset around money, and the second set is what's your goal when you look about refinancing.
Right. So mindset and goals in and around refinancing. This is a good one. Hey, Steve.
Hey, Steve.
How the heck are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
That is terrific, and I hope everybody out here in the audience is really doing fantastic as well. Welcome to the Steve and Steve Show. I'm Steve Wastenberg.
And I'm Steve Walsh. Thanks for finding us, hitting play. If you are finding us for the first time, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. And if you like what you hear on this one, or if you have a comment, please hit the like and add a comment.
So, what we try to do on this show, Steve, is to get people to be thinking about how they can make their money work for them as opposed to working for their money for the rest of their life, right? Most people spend 40 plus years working, and then at the end of that time, oh dear.
Right.
40 years figuring out how they're going to survive, right?
Yep. So it's couple topics, right? I mean, it's not just financial improvement.
No.
But it's also mindset improvement. So
Absolutely.
these are topics that you and I will talk about over a cup of coffee, a couple beers.
Yep.
And we thought that we'd share that our wisdom and our ideas with the world, and so you're the world. So.
And so today the topic is mortgages, right? I mean, you and I grew up in a world where at certain times the mortgage rate was 6, 7, even up to 10% at times, right?
Higher.
Yeah, you're right. In the 80s, It was 17, I think, at one time.
Yeah, when I had my real estate license in Arizona and selling houses, the interest rate that we were telling people was in the 13s, 14s. So, and we did sell it. The interest rates did drop below 10%. And we had a huge office party when it dropped below 10%.
And compare that. I remember the first house that Cecilia and I bought, we got it under a veteran's loan, and we got it at 7%. And same kind of, we're celebrating. Well, today, in this day and age that we've been used to for the last 10 plus years, we're talking 3, 4, 2%.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unprecedented, right? So when it was at 7%, why wouldn't I go ahead and refi when it drops to 5, and refi when it drops to 4, and refi when it drops to 3? Refinance my loan, Steve. Why wouldn't I do that?
I don't know. Why wouldn't you?
I'll tell you. I did often, but if you think about what that does, yes, you may take a payment. Let's say your payment is, we're just going to use a number, $1,700 a month for your house. And when you refinance it at a lower interest rate, maybe that goes from $1,700 to, say, $1,500 a month. So now you've got $200 a month of freed up monthly, not income, but certainly monthly money.
But on your monthly budget.
On your monthly budget, all right? Now that's nice. Well, when you did that refinance, you paid some sort of points, you paid some sort of fees.
Yep.
It cost you, I don't know, it probably cost you $5-6 grand, maybe.
Yeah, I mean that's probably it's probably about right. Maybe on the high side, but easily it's somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 to do the refinance. There's a lot of different fees that come into play.
All right, so if you refinanced for now, instead of it, let's say you had been paying that for 5 years, now you refinance for another 30-year loan. So it's going to take At that $200 a month times 12 is $2,400, a little over a year to recoup the fees that you paid, right? And now you're at that extra $200. Now, they did roll that $3,000 or whatever it is. Oftentimes people will roll that into the loan,
Right.
And put it at the end of the loan. So net to you on a monthly budget, you're getting that $200, and that's what most people think about, right?
Right. Right.
It's like, I just got $200 a month that I can go out and invest, is that what they think? I can go pay down some credit cards. Is that what they think?
I don't know what people think when they do that.
Oh, yes,
I think I think there's a variety, right? There are some people that will go and do the investment, that will do the payoffs. I think majority of the people just kind of let life happen.
$200 extra a month. You know, that car that I was thinking I couldn't afford, I got an extra $200 a month. I think I'll go buy that car. Boat.
Yeah.
Vacation.
Or I think what we see is, I think a lot of people will they'll buy the boats, or they already have the boat and they refinance, right? So they could actually take the boat, get that paid off with increasing the mortgage and getting a lower rate and stretching that out the whole 30 years. And so even though their house payment might go up a little bit, but their overall payment between the boat and the house kind of goes down.
Right.
So they're looking at some relief in the monthly payments.
Right.
And what they're not realizing is that they're really making the cost of that boat more than it is. There's a lot of factors that go into that. But you're right. The big thing is that people are going from 25 years, 20 years, and then they're stretching it back out to 30 years.
Right.
Right. They're lowering their interest rate by a little bit. They're adding in some costs, and then they're stretching it out for 30. So the question really comes down to: Are you really doing a financial advantage that way? And I think people need to look at from their perspective of and I think you mentioned this earlier before we started recording, is what's the goal, right? Because some people, they know that they're going to live in a house for 2 or 3 more years, or 5 years, 7 years is the average. People live in houses for 7 years and then they move. Or are they going to be there for the next 40 years and have it paid off, right? And is that the goal, or is it more as just a living expense to them? So, people need to figure that out.
Well, and so you're right. I think that's the key, is it a short-term goal of my monthly budget has just improved? I now have $200 or $500 more that I can do something with. Or is it the longer-term goal of, I'm going to run this out for the whole time period, and then I'm actually going to get that interest rate? Because let's face it, if you don't put it out the whole 30 years, you're not getting the 2.3 or 3% interest rate. If you only refi every 7 years, if you refi every 7 years, you're literally paying the front end of that loan, and it's a hockey stick, right? Here's the principal at the beginning, here's the interest at the beginning. You're paying a ton of interest and a very little bit of the principal on the house. Mm-hmm. And it's like a hockey stick that goes out to 30 years. If you're at 7, you've mostly paid interest, and your interest rate is effectively, if you refi after 7, more like 20, 30%, somewhere in there.
So the average 30-year loan, if you were to play that out the full entire time, where it breaks even, where you're paying interest and principal, is 23 years and a half. 23
and a half years. And that's just break even.
That's if you play it completely out, right? You're not paying anything extra, not doing any refinancing, not missing any payments, not getting the late fees. It's just play it straight out. That's the number, 23 and a half.
So if you go and refi at 7, oh dear.
Well, so depending on what you refi, so I'll tell you one of the things I did when I refi. I was on a 30-year, 5 years into it. So one of the things about refinancing that can be advantage for people is if they are paying a mortgage insurance, right? So that if they refinance in 5 years, they can help eliminate that mortgage insurance.
Right.
So that does help.
Absolutely.
What I had done is I was 5 years into my 30 year, and instead of refinancing it to another 30 year, I actually refinanced it to a 20 year.
I did the exact same
I
thing.
took off 5 years,
Yep.
right? And I think my payments were roughly about the same.
Because the interest rate changed. You got a
interest rate
better
was
interest
a better
rate.
interest rate, but also shortened the time, so it kind of increased a little bit. So the payments were still the same, but I was paying less interest, and I was able to instead of having that 30 year where the split equals, the interest and principal was a split. In year 23, it was closer in, so I was able to start getting that snowball, the principal to be paid down, just like if you were to go get a 15-year loan.
Exactly. So that's not a. So what I'm trying to get at is there's a short-term kind of thinking of, hey, as soon as I do this, first of all, I'm going to get a couple of months without a payment at all. Woo, that's like $1,700 because whenever you refi, you get usually a 2 month or a month and a half payment hiatus before you pay your first payment. But also, I'm going to get my $200 extra a month, and what am I going to do with that? The point is, most people just think of that short-term kind of month-to-month budget, or not most people, many people think of that. And if they're not thinking about this as a means to long-term eliminate that debt, they can end up getting deeper and deeper into debt. And I do this actually from experience in my earlier years.
Yeah.
I saw it as a beautiful way of lowering my monthly, but I didn't change the habits that I had, my spending habits.
Yeah.
And so I ended up just getting worse.
Yeah. So there's definitely a mindset, a money mindset when you're doing that. Certainly, if you can refinance and make the situation better, that's always great. I always talk to people, and it's not so much about getting the toys; it's all about paying off the debt when you talk to them. But
Right.
they don't necessarily, you follow up with them later, and they're still in the same situation. So there's definitely a mindset thing there.
That's the key, isn't it?
Yep. But if one of my mentors, not that I ever met him, but is Robert Kiyosaki, and he talks about good debt and bad debt. And bad debt is when it's taking out of your pocket. Good debt is when it's putting it into your pocket. And he mentions people buying doodads, the boats, the cars, the big screen TVs, and different things that are
Right.
taking money out of your pocket. And if you're using that and refinancing or putting it on credit cards and refinancing, then you're using bad debt. Recently, I went through a refinance with some of my investments, and our goal was to lower the payment, not so much pay off the loan.
Right.
So we took it from a 15-year loan, took it to a 30-year loan. I think 30, might have been a 20-year loan, but we stretched it out some more to lower the payments because what was important to us was the cash flow of the business, not necessarily a personal thing. So you got to look at your goals and what you're trying to do, and what's the goal of that particular property when you're doing mortgages.
Well, and from an investment standpoint, what you just described, and I love the fact that you talked about how Kiyosaki talks about bad debt and good debt. In your case, when you've got, let's say it's a small apartment complex that you bought, or even a house that you bought that you're renting, now you push that out to a 30-year loan, and that drops your payment every month to, $1,000, but your rent payment is $1,800. You just netted cash flow coming into you, and that's not you paying the money anymore because the mortgage is covered and you've increased your cash flow, you've increased your income. I agree. That's beautifully good debt. That's a brilliant way to do it.
Right.
Your exposure is, of course, if the market crashes, now you've got a 30-year loan on this. Hopefully, when you sell the house, or whatever it is, you're going to be able to recover and pay off that mortgage.
Right.
But either way, you got renters in there.
So kind of to sum it up, right? I mean, there's 2 points that we have here. Is the first thing that I would say is when you're looking at mortgages and refinancing, what is your goal?
Absolutely.
Right. So my goal might be different than your goal, and so everybody has their own goal. So it may not be to pay down the debt. It might be to get some relief in monthly payments.
Less anxiety.
Right. But then there's others that say, you know what, I've got some extra money each month. I want to pay off my loan. So they may
This
actually
other loan, this other credit card or something.
or the mortgage itself, right? They want to get that bigger house. Maybe that's the only thing that they're dealing with, and so they may apply extra payments to get that thing down, or they might refinance it to a 10-year loan or a 15-year loan to kind of accelerate that too. So whatever that goal is, they need to keep that in mind. The other aspect of this is it's you got to make sure your mindset is correct, because depending on your age, you're going to have 20 years, 30 years, 50 years of bad money habits that you're going to be fighting, and you have to correct your mindset. Otherwise, just going out and refinancing is not going to solve the issue.
Yeah.
Long term, you're going to go back to where you were. Right. It might take you a year, it might take you 5 years, but eventually you're going to get back to the same situation, and you have to redo everything again.
So you're right. I mean, I think, and I would actually flip and say the first thing is mindset. Get that mindset right, and that you really don't want to be burdening yourself with the debt. You may end up getting debt, but get it right so that you don't want to continue to increase over a period of 20, 30, 40 years, that those habits that you have of living under deeper and deeper debt, because you're trapped eventually. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, hope you guys liked this. I hope you guys, comment down below and say, I'm in a great loan right now, or, oh dear, I've got this. Give us some comments on it.
Yep,
right?
definitely.
Let us know.
Definitely. All right, Steve.
Cheers.
Good show today.
Yep, clean, sparkling water.
Make sure you hit that subscribe and like button. Certainly appreciate it.
Cheers.